Cigarette video. I have to finish the cigarette. These early ones are tough. It's tough to go without. Well, anyway. So this is a response video to Gratex, who, earlier posted a video about his cigarette quitting failure thing. Yeah, and it's just kind of funny because I was sort of envious of the control you were exercising, because I saw you smoking cigars in the videos, and I was like, how can he do that? I mean, how can he smoke a cigar and not get caught up in the addiction again? How can it not make it worse again? Because it does. I mean, you have to get to that point where the cravings are, low enough where you can step past them, where they don't really possess you as and they're not as frequent, and as soon as you start get a taste for nicotine again, you're trapped. I mean, you just can't go back. I mean, once you stop, you got to stop. I mean, it's over. No more nicotine. Because as soon as you give your body a taste of it again, I think you're dead. I imagine you're dead. I can't say you're dead because I haven't ever been able to quit. Ever. Ever. Unless I'm unconscious, I'm smoking. But anyway. So, subject of nature, nurture, that whole angle. And I agree that this terminology, I really hate it. I mean, I hate the whole idea that there's some sort of separation between these things, but they are separate. I mean, that's the part that, I don't like the way it's talked about, but but my biggest problem is that people aren't acknowledging. It's almost like we're back to my analogy of the lizard, the ape, and the intelligence. And so you could look at it as that, the lizard is there's some things that are naturally hardwired into us. We are pre-programmed with certain dispositions, certain tendencies in our programming. And then there's this whole conditioned part of us that we don't have any control over, at least in the conditioning part, that takes place when we're kids and sets up all kinds of preferences and, all the stuff that makes up our preferences and prejudices, our tastes, our style, our, all that kind of bullshit. And then there's this intelligence thing. And I think we would agree that the intelligence is the one that has the real credibility. It's the one that ideally should be in control, but it's only given limited control. I mean, I'm not saying you're implying that it has more, but it just sounds almost like you're saying that there is this mind over matter thing, and I just think it's a limited prospect. We can only control so much of our personality. We can only discipline so much of it. We can only create so many, and it's almost like you have to game your own brain. It's like we can't even to overcome the selfish nature, let's say, you have to basically intellectually make it selfish of yourself to do something good, because you have to basically humiliate yourself or degrade yourself if you aren't selfless in a certain circumstance. You almost have to oblige yourself to do right by punishing yourself for doing bad. You still have to go back to the stupid ape psychology of carrots and sticks, and your brain has to use carrots and sticks, your intelligence, sorry, to manipulate the ape and to try to conform him to what intelligence is telling you is a improvement in ape behavior. And there's just no direct line. I mean, you can't have an intellectual realization and then make it your physiological self. It's just not that. You don't have that liberty. It's I've sort of said before, you can't just say one day, yeah, I'll be a homosexual, or I'll like sushi or whatever the thing is, with some, it just depends on, those innate things, just they have to be overcome in some reconditioning way, some kind of relearning that you have to go through to change that stuff, and you can't just do it with an idea. An idea isn't going to be enough to get to the ape. The ape needs more than just an idea, and that's sort of like a big flaw in our whole psychology, is that we can know something's wrong, but we're still going to have compulsions that are going to drive us to do it. And the only way, and we just have to artificially create these barriers to prevent us, and the barriers are almost excessive and extreme considering what it should require. I mean, all we should require is the sign that says no trespassing or don't go there, but we have to do more than that, because just having the brain recognize it is never enough. We have to get the ape to recognize it, the ape to feel it. And it's a frustration, because we can only improve ourselves to a certain level. I'm not saying we can't even go, it's not a certain level conveniently. To get to the next stage, you really have to do the work. I mean, you really have to recondition the ape, and that takes, it takes a lot of time. It's like you got to spend a career sitting with the ape and teaching it a new language and teaching it how to reconditioning it, and that's a lot of time and work, through meditation or whatever the mechanism would be. And most people aren't going to have the incentive or the time to change that part of their psyche, that part of their personality. And but it is a frustration, it's an irritant. It's just an obstacle from our intelligence really being able to overcome all the influences affecting us, because it's like we can understand that we're being lied to, we can understand that the propagandists are working on us, we can understand that they're attempting to manipulate us, but we'll still fall into traps. We'll still get seduced, even though we don't want to be seduced, even though we don't want to need, and we don't want to want, and we don't want all that crap. It's just hard to turn it off. It's hard to turn off something that is part of your nature, what you've not even, again, I said the wrong word, part of the person you have become through nature and nurturing. It's hard to recondition that animal, and it really takes time. It was like I had contempt and I was irritated by sports long before I got to the point where I could just say the hell with it. I wasn't have no interest anymore, nothing. No, I didn't want to know it, didn't want to hear it. And it didn't even matter if I got exposed to it. I just didn't have any, there was no way it could seduce me again, because I had made it so ugly in my head finally that I had reconditioned myself. But it just didn't happen, and what you just don't say one day, it's not going to own me anymore. I'm not going to be owned by that. And cigarettes are very different, because it's that physical thing, that nicotine. But that's just, it just kind of shows the example that there's this part of us, that this mechanism inside of us, this compulsion element of our brain, is not something we can just control with a thought. We can't turn it on and off with a thought, like I said. I mean, we can control it in the sense that we can create a false perception or a false world for it to have to operate in, and we can manipulate it in a way. We can change its course by fooling it. It's like we can fool part of ourselves. We can delude part of our brain into doing what we want it to do. But it's a lot more complicated than just saying, yeah, I'm not going to want cigarettes anymore. I'm not going to need nicotine anymore. And like I said, I think it is a parallel to a lot of other things, because it's whatever nicotine is whatever mechanism in the brain it's triggering is very similar to these other triggers in our lives, that where we become addicted or become wanting, become needing. It's playing on that same physical mechanism of desire, and where your focus and your attention, it's so hard to break the hold it has on you. So anyway, it's an interesting conversation. I'm not, my brain seems kind of fuzzy, so that's a little irritating. But whatever. And so till next time, and yeah, I'm sorry about your relapse, and wish you luck in getting through the next couple of days.